Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to GeoGearHeads episode 229. Yes, it's Daryl W4 again, back from the land without power, with, of course, my co-host, the bad cop, and another Chris, also known as Rock Chalk. But today, he's not coming to us from geocaching.com. He's not a geocaching.com dude. He's just another cacher hanging out with us, as those of you can tell watching us live, because he's not in the office.
Yes, the chains are off. I can say whatever I want now. It's I don't know if Brian or Jeremy would go for that if I went back to the office and yeah, I don't think that would fly.
So we're not going to get any inside scoop on what Brian and Jeremy do on the weekends?
Well, maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see how loopy I get during the course of the
What are you drinking tonight then? Is that straight vodka?
This is I think this is Target brand strawberry lemonade something or other. Exciting, isn't it?
It is. It is. You know how to live. You're living the good life.
That's right. I'm going crazy tonight.
You're really getting ready for summer because that sounds like a very refreshing summertime drink.
It is. That's true. That's true. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, that's the strongest thing I've got right here.
Nice. And Daryl, welcome back to the 21st century.
Yeah, it's nice to have power again. There was a time I was wondering if I was meant to have power because I lost power here, then at work, then here again, and again the next day. So I don't think I'm supposed to have power.
It's good to have you back.
Well, it's good to be back, and I really did miss being on that last show. There were quite a few points that I wanted to kind of elaborate on as we were talking. So I was listening to the show, and it was like, this is a fun show. I could tell that you guys had a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun. It was a good show. But you're not going to put me in charge of sounds anymore. I can tell you that.
You had a few issues with that.
And I don't know why. It's just a mental block with me on this particular show. So I'm going to have to run through it a time or two, just to get practice.
So you're saying I need to schedule more power outages so that you can practice?
Yeah. So just you could do it on Thursday afternoon. Just ram your car into a power pole and I'll take over.
I'm thinking maybe I'll just flip the main breaker.
Oh. Well, that would work too, but if you wanted to do it the old-fashioned way.
You never know. We may have copper thieves running around.
Oh man, let me tell you about that.
Well,
you don't get that much for copper. I don't know why they do it.
Not anymore. Well, you did for a while. Now you don't anymore. So that's why they're not breaking into the transformers and stuff all the time anymore. It's a commodity. It changes prices. But
that's right.
We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about on this randomized episode, so let's get into the first one, which was an article posted to the Shriver Air Force Base blog, essentially, stating that the GPS registered the most accurate signal yet. And they've said that on April 25th, the Air Force GPS registered its most accurate signal yet, according to the Aerospace Corporation, which has been monitoring the data since 2002. The numbers from a network of NASA-owned Jet Propulsion Laboratory-operated GPS tracking stations, aerospace analysts calculated the signal-in-space accuracy of GPS to 38 centimeters, or about 14.9 inches.
That's amazing. And you think that's the best in 14 years.
Yeah, well, and you're thinking this is all on satellites, in a system that was designed basically in the 60s, and satellites that are aging, and they've got the last of the Block 2F satellites up there.
Right. And so do you think that's what made the difference? Launching new equipment up there?
Yeah, and
or
that's one of the
getting
things they
newer
actually
equipment
mentioned.
on board, I should say.
Lieutenant Colonel Todd Benson of the 2nd Space Operations Squadron. Isn't that a great division to work for?
It's
I
the
want to work.
SOS.
I want to work for the Space Operations Squadron.
What else do they do? Are there things they can't tell us?
Well, I'm assuming that it's all about the the GPS satellites, because that's got to take like an entire crew,
Yeah, but space
24/7.
operations could mean so much more. They
I
could have
know.
secret spaceships up there.
But I think that the second one is only in charge of the GPS. It's the
Oh,
first,
okay.
the third, and the fourth that we want to know what they do.
How many are there?
I don't know.
See?
For all we know, there is a 69th or something, and that's the one that we really care about.
Ooh.
Anyway, Lieutenant Colonel Todd Benson said that one improvement has been the outstanding GPS Block 2F spacecraft that have been acquired by the Space and Missile Systems Center and launched by the 45th Space Wing. So there's 12 of those new satellites, and they are credited with improving the accuracy of the GPS constellation.
It's amazing. When you think some of those satellites have been up there for how long? And they're still operating from the 60s. I don't have anything from the 60s that still works.
Well, I think all of those original 60s and 70s spacecraft have been decommissioned now.
Probably.
So
in one way or another.
Yeah.
Through collisions or failures.
Well, and that was one of the things that we've mentioned in a couple of the other episodes, the older ones, is talking about the failures on some of these spacecraft, and some of them are well past their operating life, and others had something happen where they just had to decommission them close to on schedule, as I recall. So, they're not killing them just,
because
accidentally, but they're dying. They're dying quicker than some of the other ones, but a lot of these original GPS satellites just seem to last for decades and decades, and the better the hardware, the better the accuracy. So these newer ones, as they're coming online, have been really good in improving our accuracy, and then the next generation, the GPS 3s, are supposed to do even better yet they're still using that same old system, just making incremental improvements on it.
That's exactly right. Well, you made a great segue there, Daryl, into our next story. You talked about the GPS-3 system, and the U.S. Air Force has just awarded SpaceX the first competitively sourced launch services contract in more than a decade. So when you think about it, for the last 10 years, the United States, NASA, or the Air Force themselves, have launched all the satellites up and not used an outside company. So now with the, of course, the decommissioning of the space shuttle, we have to go to another company to help us launch those satellites. And SpaceX was awarded that contract, and they're going to launch all of the GPS-3 series satellites for a total contract of $82.7 million.
Yeah, that's kind of insane. But one of the big reasons that SpaceX has been working toward this is they're trying to take a different approach. It's the same thing with Bezos and Musk have both been working on this with their independent agencies. So it's really about trying to get the cost of the vehicles and the cost of operations down. One of the podcasts that I had caught was talking about like a computer to guide one of the systems that the government had just been using. Just that computer was $40,000.
Wow.
And they basically over at SpaceX just said, that's absolutely insane. Okay, we're going to reinvent this because we can do it with this other stuff, and just drop the normal computers into some better housings and blah blah blah. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but they got that down where it's a couple $100 for a computer rather than like $40,000. So that's a huge difference, and that's why it's so cheap, and that's how this contract is probably going to save the government millions of dollars, even though it is,
Billions of dollars in
over
and of
80,
itself.
over $80 million. I'm wondering, well, if that kind of pricing holds out, this is probably something that would have cost, trillions of dollars before. I don't think it would, but
I don't know. I mean, if it's competitive, I don't know. We wouldn't get those numbers because
when it's the
true
government
cost
doing it,
is
they're
obfuscated.
and they're buying the rockets.
Right.
So you'd get the price of the rockets, but not the price of the crews launching them, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was done by the 45th Space Wing.
Of the second Space Operations Squadron?
They were launched by the 45th Space Wing. They were handled after handoff, because they hand off the satellites after launch to the second SOS, which was the Space Operations Squadron.
Right. So is there multiple wings within a squadron?
I don't think so. I think the wings are the fighter pilot types, and then the squadrons are the guys who just control or something. I don't know. It just some great fodder for some sci-fi books.
Without a doubt.
Ooh, interesting. Limax asked if the GPS-3 satellites will be in a low orbit similar to the Hubble. I don't think so. I thought that they were supposed to be in the same orbit. That's something to look into.
He also says...
I don't think that's anything that Groundspeak has any influence in.
I don't think we have anybody we can call about that.
Oh, shucks. I mean, you don't have the second Space Operations Squadron on speed dial?
I'll have to check with Brian and Jeremy. They do know a lot of people. Maybe it is in their little directory.
Nice.
That would be fun. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, and there's a lot too much data here to actually figure out right now. But designed life is supposed to only be 15 years on one of these satellites. And they're running with nickel metal hydride batteries.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Power at end of life is 4480 watts.
That's it, 44 watts.
No, 4480. 4,480 watts.
Okay.
That's at end of life. But I know that they have the solar panels to power, so the batteries are just kind of to, keep things running.
Right.
But I do wonder, how much power does it actually take to operate one of those things? It's going to be a heck of a lot more than the cell phone. Just think about the radios that they have to have on those.
Well, and how little signal we get here on the Earth.
Right.
So very tiny in power. It's really amazing the thing works.
And the version 3 satellites are supposed to be about twice the signal strength of the 2Fs.
Nice. Now, I've gone to a couple of ham radio meetings, and I've learned about signal deprecation as it comes through the atmosphere. And, GPS signal is one of them. And you look at it and you go, how does it ever get here?
I know.
The conditions have to be exactly right. But
all right, let's move on to our next question. That's your cue, Chris.
That's my cue. Okay. Well, Startcacher sent an email saying, are you aware of any list of the more popular geocaching apps by OS? I'm going to help with an intro to geocaching session on May 21st. We better get that to him quickly. I'm just saying. That's like 2 days away.
Yeah, hey, we got 2 days.
Okay. And he continues, the last time I did this, someone asked what app they should install. I suggested the geocaching.com app. Did you hear that, Chris? Uh-oh. You don't want to hear the next part. However, with the controversy over current app abilities, I would not feel comfortable recommending that one yet. I know that many other apps work only on specific platforms. However, I'm not sure which for each. I would like to have a list with me that I could reference if someone asks again. Then I could recommend an app that works well on their phone. I could try to make a list based on my limited knowledge. I don't have a smartphone. But I was wondering if you know a recent list I could use. If not, could you make a recommendation for each platform?
Well, I did actually reply to him earlier, and
oh, good.
There is not a current list that I know of. We've had lists that we've talked about on our shows, and that's probably one of the best things to do is check out GDH 203, which was our smartphone caching show, and I think it was 5 apps that we talked about for each of the platforms, and it has the links, so you can go there. But that was before Cachely really developed, so it's missing Cachely for iOS, and that's a really good one. But probably a good one to pass around, especially at events, is that list that I made with some instructions about loading the GPX files. So if you're looking for that kind of software, check out the, and we'll have links in the show notes for all this, but check out the smartphones list that I did for the event out here, and that has the instructions about loading the GPX files in. So if you have those caches that are not published at geocaching.com for a training, for whatever, those are the apps that you can use which will do that, unlike, unfortunately, the intro app. And when we talked with, help me out, Chris, because I'm totally blanking.
Nate.
Nate, thank you.
Nate.
I knew it was an Irish, but I was coming.
I know. I was just about to say that, but there's more than one Irish. Anyway, when we talked with Nate, he was interested in why we were talking about doing the external caches. So hopefully, we'll be getting some kind of support for that in the future. Mm-hmm. But at this point, it's only the published caches that work through the official, intro now geocaching.com app.
Right.
So if you want to do these off-site caches and ones that aren't published, then you're going to have to use one of these third-party apps.
Exactly. And, the official geocaching.com app is really designed for premium members. So if you're not a premium member, you're going to see a very limited set of caches that you can go find.
Right. But that said, it's a great place for new cachers to get started because it does have the help that you won't get from the third-party apps. The third-party apps are designed for the more experienced cachers, not for the people who are just coming into it for the first time.
And it will definitely let you know when you're near the cache. That's all I'm going to say. Love a little switch to be able to turn that off.
I'm with you, brother.
Ding! I know! I'm walking right towards it.
I was out caching with, and it was somebody from work over the weekend, and she was using the geocaching app, and I was still using the classic app, and or actually I was using my GPS most of the day, but anyway, she was using the app, and it kept dinging, and I was like, we need to go back and give somebody an earful about that. So I would love to see it. Maybe it's the first 5 that you find or something or whatever, or you could just turn it off.
Exactly. I mean, I completely understand. I think as an intro app, it is really quite good. But I think there needs to be an option in the settings to say turn off intro mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let me go about it. You can always turn it back on if you're not sure what you're doing, but yeah, just be able to turn it on and off.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the concept of having that notice pop up, but I'd like it to be a little bit more configurable, because right now it's not at all, but I'd like it to have the option to just shut it off or give it like a speed-sensitive range, too. So if you're driving, have it pop up that you're getting close, if you're on like your bike, driving, not necessarily by car. But, if I'm on my bike, I'd love to have it pop up a message like that, about 200-300 feet out, so that I know it's time to start slowing down.
Well,
and then I don't have to look at it.
Do, right?
Exactly, yeah. But I turn it off on my Garmin's too because I find that annoying.
Right.
But I do like the concept of it. It's just not something that I want to have.
And well, I agree. It would be nice at certain times. I don't want it every time. But if I'm in the car and ding, oh, I might have just driven by it. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem with I think it's 30 feet or something that the official app is doing right now.
Oh no, like 75.
It's 75 feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But yeah, if you're on your bike, you're not going to have time to stop in 75 feet. Or at least not safely. Or maybe if you're going like 5 miles an hour, but I don't do 5 miles an hour. Next question came from Jersey Eric, and he said, I realize you can't address model-specific issues, but since Daryl has an eTrex 30 like me, I thought I'd ask. Question 1, is there a way on a Garmin eTrex 30 to put it into a sleep mode? Here's the problem. I mostly use my GPSR to record tracks while hiking biking rides. Yes, I do use it for geocaching when my smartphone does not seem accurate, but when it records tracks, I just want to start recording and put it away in my pocket or bag. The problem is when in a pocket or bag, the GPSR receives a lot of unintended keystrokes, often recording lots of waymarks. Luckily, none of these unintended keystrokes has stopped the recording of my tracks, but one day I know that's going to happen. Then question 2, any suggestions on a bike mount for the eTrex 30 for a standard adult bicycle?
Well, I want to say it uses the same bike mount as does the it's a standard Garmin mounting.
Well, yeah, they have the rail system that they're using now.
There you go. That's what I was trying to say. So I have one on my bike for my Garmin, and it works really well. The only thing is, I've got the Garmin 600. It's a little sensitive to rain, so if it starts to rain, buttons get pushed. But other than that, I mean, the mount on the bicycle works beautifully.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I like the button versions, the non-touch screens, is because you don't have to worry about the things like the rain. But I like the RAM mounts because they're for the bikes because they are much more stable than the Garmin mounts. The Garmin mounts are easier; they're lighter weight, a lot easier to get the GPS on and off. Mm-hmm. But for trail riding, it just vibrates so much that I can't really read it. So. My recommendation is the
vibrating as much as the bike. So the GPS should be relatively stable to you, right?
Yeah, because of the way that it's fastened on, it's not quite so stable.
I know.
Yeah, and the handlebars are not necessarily shaking at the same rate as your hindquarters. So we did talk about that a bit, though, on episode 176. So if you want to go back and take a look at options for your bike, that's a good show to check out.
Wait, Daryl, did we talk about shaking hindquarters on 176?
I don't really think we did.
Okay.
So that's
never mind.
to this.
Sorry.
But going back to the first one, I think the key lock is going to solve his actual issue. But it does still keep the screen on, and it still draws that battery power. And I don't think – I hadn't had a chance to go and check since we got the email, but I don't think the eTrex 30 has that sleep mode. Some of the older units did, but the newer units seem to have stripped that functionality out. And that was a nice function because you could have it up. In the sleep mode, it would take slower polls, so you wouldn't get as accurate a track. You'd only get – like 1 in every 10 samples kind of thing that it's doing. So you'd get, like on a curve, it would be more like a corner than a curve. Mm-hmm. But that seems to have gone away on the newer units. And I heard a long time ago with like the 60 CSX that they had pulled that out because in the newer chipsets, it didn't save any power to go into that sleep mode. I'd still like to have them shut down that screen, but the screens don't take as much power, so they just figured that wasn't worth it. So, yeah, I don't think that there is a sleep mode. I know some other manufacturers had that, including like the Magellan Explorers line does have a sleep mode, but when I tried it on that one, about 3-4 years ago, the tracks that I was getting out of it were completely useless because it was like 1 sample in 100.
Wow.
So it was not something that you could actually use. Chris, what is your experience with the biking in mounts. Have you had a chance to play with that at all?
I have a Garmin 600, and I use the Garmin mount, and it's okay. I don't really use it a lot. I actually just bought more of an off-road bike a few months ago. I have a road bike that I use for commuting, and so I bought something that I can use more for dirt and like rock trails and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try the Garmin mount on there, but it's on the road bike. It's been a little disappointing, to be honest. It seems like it just doesn't have it's not as tight as I want it to be. It tends to move around a little bit. But again, I haven't used it a ton, so I'm sure there's probably little modifications that I can make to kind of improve on that.
Yeah, and the way that I remember the Garmin one works is it's just using zip ties.
Oh yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
So one of the tricks that you can use is take an old bicycle tire, the tube, not the actual tire, but take the tube, cut that, wrap it around so that you have the rubber from the tire as a extra shim, and that allows you to cinch it down tighter and gives it a little bit more stable fit.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll give that a try.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there are actual shims that you can buy, but that costs money.
I actually replaced the zip ties with bigger ones, sturdier ones.
Yeah,
that makes a big difference. They send you very, very flimsy, thin ties that don't have a lot of grip to them. So
sure.
And of course, they do make bike-specific GPSRs. However, I don't.
Do they still?
Yeah, the Edge series.
Okay.
I don't think any of those support geocaching. I know that the new Edge units have mapping in them, and that was a cool factor that made me drool over it. But realistically, I just use my smartphone now. That's everything as my cycle computer. I just wish it had a little bit better battery life.
I've used something like Map My Ride.
Yep.
And I found my GPS got me better accuracy as far as distance and speed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the smartphones aren't as accurate, period. But I actually have the Ant Plus sensors on my road bike, and that ties in through the dongle on the iPhone. Of course, they don't have the version for Lightning, so I have to go through an adapter, which means I just don't use it. It makes it way too obnoxious. And you can't plug in a battery if you do that. So there are Bluetooth ones, and that's the way everything has been going. So the next bike I get will probably have the Bluetooth cadence and speed sensors instead. Where's Dano when we're talking about this?
In Maine.
In Maine, probably sitting on his sofa, sipping his beer. No, he's probably out caching.
He could be. Oh boy. Well, so go back to GeoGearHeads 176 on gearing your bike. For that, we gave you a lot of great options, not only for your GPS but for your smartphone as well. Daryl, in the chat room, we have a wonderful chat room. You're free to join anytime you want to listen and watch us on a Thursday night. You can pop in there, enter your own questions, just as Butterfly Girl did. She asked, "Can I see your list, or can you see lists? Can you see your list of caches?" That was the word combination she used. Can you see your list of caches offline using the geocaching app? I thought you could do it with Cachely, but I don't see it. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, you can. Offline lists were added within the last month or so. So yes, you can, and that was something that wasn't there when we launched, quote unquote, which was a pretty glaring weakness, and so that's been corrected. So yes, you can look at your lists and save them offline via the app now.
And you can create them in the app.
Yes, 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 you can. You can create and edit lists within the app as well.
Yeah, and that's a huge update that they did just not that long ago. I think it was like just before we did the show with Nate.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's just a month, if that. Mm-hmm.
Right. But it is only the caches that are published on geocaching.com. I don't think it does archive, but it does do disabled if I remember my playing.
Daryl, you keep beating the same drum.
What's that?
Only listed caches. No
oh, yeah, right. But what she's talking about with Cachely, if you're importing your lists from like the GPX file or a Pocket Query, you go to the More option at the bottom right corner, and there's an offline list option, and then it shows you your list. There's also an imported in there, so you have those options in Cachely. It's just kind of hidden under the More. And actually, Limax was saying that the lists are available in Cachely as well, which we just kind of talked about.
Right, and Butterfly Girl just popped up. How do I do that as you were answering? So,
there we go.
Ahead of the curve.
We like being ahead of the curve.
I feel like I'm missing out. I can't figure out how to get to the chat room. You guys are going to have to tell me how to...
Over in the left side in the drawer, hit the like teal Q&A button, and then you can watch.
But since you're in on our side, you can't enter. You can read what's going on, but you can't submit a question.
Yeah, I can't even see the drawer. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
The drawer. I see a suitcase.
Okay, above the suitcase, most likely, you should see the Q&A.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
And, sweet.
And while he's enjoying that, why don't we check out our pseudo voicemail that came in through SpeakPipe on the website.
Hi, my name is Bruce Cousins, also known as Team Dastardly. I wrote to you previously on Google Hangouts about the geo-trashing that we've encountered here. What has happened is I have a flyer put around town that I am putting on a geocaching presentation later on this month. And somebody looked up what geocaching is and somehow came to the conclusion that we are littering. So they took it upon themselves to remove all of the geocaches that were listed under geocaching.com as public, and collected them all and either destroyed them in place and left them, or gathered them up and gave them to a local police officer. So now we're trying to figure out what their intent is, why they did it, and they had also claimed that if they found any more published, that they were going to take it upon themselves to remove them. I have spoken to BLM and got their blessing that it is okay with BLM guidelines. And that's all I got for now. Thanks.
All right. One of the interesting things that came out of that conversation was the term geotrashing. It's the first time I've heard geotrashing in that context. What I'm usually used to hearing is geotrashing is the poor quality caches, but I have heard it in a few other contexts. So that's one of those words that seems to have come out of geocaching that doesn't have a very well-defined meaning yet. But Chris, maybe you can give us a clue of what geocaching.com does when they get reports of these cache theft and vandalism strings.
Well, what we do we do what we can do. The first thing is that geocaches are considered property of the person that put them out. So when you have a situation where someone has had permission to place a geocache and they put a container out there, and then someone comes and steals it or trashes it or whatever the case may be, that's a situation where someone is according to most laws, is trashing someone's personal property. And so you can report that to the local authorities, and they can take whatever action they're going to take. From our standpoint, there are things that we can try to do if it's reported to us. We can try to just do various investigative things to try to narrow down who might be responsible. But as you can imagine, what we can do only goes so far. So we do everything we can. When somebody reports it to us, we absolutely investigate it to the full level that we're able to. But in a lot of cases, what we found is that people have better luck going through the local authorities and trying to get it across to whoever's responsible that, hey, what you're doing is trashing someone's personal property, and that's typically against the law. So that's kind of the route that we try to direct people to, and then we, of course, try to do anything that we can on our end once we have as many of the details as we possibly can.
Well, and one of the things many of the communities who have run into this problem have done is turn those caches into premium-only caches, because it does give them more information, even without asking geocaching.com. So that's something that has helped. Most of the time, whomever's doing the theft or vandalism, they're not going to pay that $30 a year, or the, what is it, $10 for 3 months? Does that sound right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So they're not even going to do that much. They're not that invested in it to pay money, but it does get the tracking as well. That said, I don't recommend going after people, period. You can take your findings and hand that over to the police, but one of the interesting things mentioned there was that they actually turned the cache over to the police, or at least one of the caches. So.
Yeah, because you know, I think with some of these cases, and it sounds like maybe the one that was just described, you have someone who has a very limited understanding of what this game is, and they just think, oh, people are just, you know, throwing stuff out, and there's no permissions and there's no process in place, and so they think that they're doing the community some sort of a service by rounding these things up, and likely don't understand that there's usually a lot more to it, and that people are supposed to have permission, and that what they're doing isn't necessarily the service that they think it is.
Right, and we had been talking a little bit before the show, like weeks before the show when this question first came in, and if this was placed without permission, then this is a totally different situation. You know, the cache owner or the property owner might not have wanted it there.
Yeah.
And you know, that's something, certainly they're in their right to remove it from their property.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Get permission, always, and make notes of who you spoke with. Yeah, I like to stick it in the reviewer's notes, and actually, I think that's required for the Earth caches. Am I wrong?
I'd have to go and look and see if the requirements are different for Earth caches than regular caches. I mean, in any cache placement, you're strongly encouraged to put it in the reviewer notes, because if Geocaching HQ gets a phone call or an email or something, some sort of a private property complaint, and we can look at the cache listing and look at the review notes, which once the cache is published, those get removed from public view, so only the reviewers or HQ can see them. We can go and say, oh, hey, by the way, somebody at your place did approve that cache, and here's who it was, here's their name, and here's when they did it. That's extremely helpful to us, whereas if we get that phone call with some sort of a complaint, we generally have to assume that, yeah, there wasn't permission there, and yes, we'll archive the listing. Whereas if we have some sort of documentation that the cache owner got permission, then we can do more on that cache owner's behalf to try to find some sort of a different outcome.
Yeah, we had that going on here where there were people coming up and taking the caches as, you know, geo-trash. And that's when all the premium member caches came out, and those never got disturbed. So that was one way to do it. You know, there were folks saying, okay, how can we rig up a camera that when the container's open, it snaps a picture and sends it off so we can find out who this person is? And they were convinced it was a ex-cacher that was just trying to damage the game. But I was like, you probably don't want to do that. You don't want to set a trap for whoever is going out to remove your caches.
And that has happened where cachers get angry with someone and start vandalizing or stealing their caches. But Limax says it sounds like this person actually went the extra mile just by going to geocaching.com and then to take them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's right that this is someone who's that motivated. But when it comes to cache, actually shelling out that money, generally you're not finding that they will. Not always, because there was that cacher, I can't remember the name, who actually wasn't a cacher, but he had the account, who had been a premium member so that he could go and remove all of the caches on the farm roads, I think it was.
Well, see, then you just need to start placing D5, T5 caches, and now they've really got to be committed to go find these and remove them.
Yeah, and they may
find that difficulty and terrain rating. You just keep bumping it up until they don't remove them anymore, and then you stay there.
All right, White Coaster in the live Q&A wants us to jump back to the app topic, and he says, when he opens the app, the map initially shows where I'm at the time, then it jumps to where I was the last time I opened the app, where we were just traveling, and I found that very annoying. Is this a feature of the app or a feature of my phone? So I think what he's talking about is the actual map location, and I think that that's supposed to be the behavior so that if you've been scrolling around, it stays at that last spot. I don't think it's necessarily supposed to jump to where you're at now, but I know that like Geosphere does that. So when I'm scrolling around trying to find caches where I'm about to go, if I go out and come back in, I'm not, at a totally different spot than I want it to be. That's my guess. And I don't think Rock Chalk, you have any insight into why we do that.
Well, I haven't had any experience with that sort of behavior with the app, so I can certainly ask about it.
We'll wait while you get Nate on the phone.
Yeah. No, I've not. Like I said, I've not had any experience with that, but I can certainly look into it.
Now that you mention it, I think it does that for me when I'm scrolling around. I think it stays where it was, and then I have to go tell it, hey, find me, because I've moved. So
this is one of the problems with the live Q&A stuff is we have no time to test any of it out. Right. So we're kind of speaking just off the cuff right now.
But I know I usually kill the app when I'm not using it, so it doesn't use the GPS, lowers the battery. I know it's not supposed to matter, but I do that. That's a habit of mine. So when I start it up, it's usually, it's been shut down, so it finds me and moves on.
I opened it up and played with it just a little bit here. I think the solution is probably in the crosshairs in the upper left corner. It has essentially 3 modes to the crosshair, at least on mine. It fires up, in my case, without the lock on, so it's just the white with the green crosshairs. You tap that, and it inverts, so it's green with white crosshairs, and then it's going to track wherever you're moving. If you hit it again, it goes into like this compass icon, and then that's where it's direction up. So I think if it's in that GPS lock mode, it will track you wherever you're at. If not, it stays at the last point you were on the map.
Well, Wet Coaster's replied. He said, I just started up the app. The map initially showed my home area. Without touching anything, it now shows the map around Pearson Airport in Toronto.
So the question, I guess, would be, were you looking at caches around Pearson Airport in Toronto in the app before you closed it?
Or the app wants you to go to Toronto by air.
Ooh, maybe this is a new feature and there's a portal coming.
Ooh.
So you can actually just beam to the caches that you want, and it's taking your phone there electronically, but hopefully Nate's going to get that function rolled in, and you can actually just beam to that location.
Now, more than likely, geocaching.com is partnered with a travel service, and it's going to go to an airport on the other side of the country, and then give you flights to get there quickly.
You got us.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. We thought we could keep it from you, but you figured it out. No, I had seen that question in the Q&A, and I opened up the app, and it's just stayed on where I am, so I didn't get that behavior. But yeah, that's an interesting.
And Wet Coaster said that he was looking for caches before they flew home. So I think that's probably what it is he's moving around on the map. Now, if you hit that lock, it's probably going to stay there. So maybe you can give that a shot and see if that fixes it.
He said more than that, Daryl.
He talks about smart money. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think it's the smart money is on us having.
Oh, that's it. Okay, that's what he meant. Yeah.
But Limax wants to know if it's the blue or orange portal.
Don't you need one of each in order for it to work?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a blue portal that you want, but I haven't played that game probably in like 3 or 4 years.
I never have. But isn't blue and orange both in the geocaching.com logo?
Right.
As well as yellow and green. So maybe there's 4 portals they're working on.
Ooh.
One for each color.
But, they won't tell Chris because he might leak it to us.
Yeah, exactly. These are all interesting ideas. I'm looking at the map right now, and there's blue and orange dots and green. What is that? What does that mean?
I'm thinking that maybe those aren't caches; they're actually portal locations.
Oh.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Gosh.
Yeah, but then you still have to drive to it. You need to be able to place one like at your house so that you can just jump to that new cache and get the FTF.
Yeah, but the TSA is going to be at the portals and checking you out before you can travel.
Which is going to delay your departure by 2 to 3 hours.
Exactly. There'll be a lineup outside the portals.
Okay, moving on to Douglas Cache via Google Plus asked, what do you think about placing routine caches in city parks and good caching locations to claim, quote, territory, and then try to trade territories to other cachers for either other territory or other goods? All right, so that's the first of the questions, and I'm just going to say no.
So what kind of, are you just going to put out LPCs and guardrail caches to claim that territory?
I think that what he's actually talking about is like slingers, because I've seen people do this before, where in order to lock up a park or something, and this I don't have as much trouble with, they're locking up a park or other things so that no one else can go in and take it because they're planning on like an event or a big cache series, like a big multi-cache or something like that. I've also seen it where they're working with the park and the park doesn't want caches where they shouldn't be, so by placing these key caches, they lock up the territory so no one else can place a cache in that park.
Now, the second part I understand, that's fine. The first part is plan better. I am the bad cop.
You are.
I can play that role if I want to.
All right. Well, Rock Chalk, replying to this first question about the territory, do you have anything you want to input?
Oh, I don't know that I would think I kind of agree with you, Daryl. Yeah, I mean I don't know. it's not something that I would. I mean, I guess I can see reasons for it. As far as trading territories and things like that, I think that's lame. It's difficult to police that or regulate it in any way, but I do think it's not cool for whatever that's worth.
No, not at all. And the second question as part of this thread is, how much of a town or area available for caching should a single cache owner control?
As many as they're willing to place.
Yeah, I was going to say, if they're good caches.
You know, I think of Gary Slinker down in Greenville, Texas. He's about the only cacher in the town. He owns pretty much the entire town. You know, it's one thing to say, well, nobody should own New York City, but if you're in a small town and you're the only cacher.
Well, and there's some of the parks around here where cachers have made arrangements with the park service. They vet the caches before they go in, and that makes total sense to me. Then there's other ones where you've got very prolific hiders who hide pretty much the entire city, wall to wall, and they do a good job. They turn over their caches regularly, so that doesn't really bother me very much.
Mm-hmm.
However, if they're not turning over the caches, if they're poor quality caches, I have issues with them whether or not they're, taking over whole areas of town.
I agree with that. It depends on the situation. We can't throw out a blanket rule for any one condition.
Exactly. And then finally, should a hard challenge cache be placed in a small neighborhood park or other obvious and easy caching area?
Why not?
Rock Chalk?
Well,
you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, yeah, again, we're not going to regulate that, but my personal feeling is that whenever I find a really difficult puzzle cache in a beautiful beautiful location. There's this one in Seattle that I found once, and I was there at sunset, and it was just this beautiful view of the skyline, and it was in a park, and it kind of bummed me out a little bit just because it seemed unfortunate that people that can't solve that puzzle aren't going to be able to experience, aren't going to be brought to this place by a geocache. So there have been times when I've thought, yeah, we should just have all the hard puzzle caches and stuff. They should all be, in light posts and on deserted country roads. But obviously there's no way to police that. I just, and it's nothing against the cache owners that do it. I do just have those moments where I think, gosh, only this many people have found the cache, and that means that there are so many others that if this was just a traditional or an easy or even an easier puzzle, then it might expose more people to this place. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said, though, for that very rewarding find after you've solved a particularly challenging cache.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That's your reward for going through all the effort. Do you really want to find an LPC after you've done, 30 hours of puzzle solving?
Sometimes solving the puzzle is the thrill.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's definitely a good argument to be made that we can't lock up these fabulous places with caches that very few people are going to do.
Right.
I will also say he's talking about the small neighborhood parks. That's, I think, a problem for the cache hider if they don't want people to, muscle it and claim the find, because a lot of times those small parks, there's only a couple of places that you can hide a cache, and people will find it. I've accidentally found caches that way myself, mostly looking for places to hide a new cache. But, if you can figure out what the puzzle cache is that's there, well, you sign the log, you get to claim it.
Mm-hmm.
Limax says that they have a prolific hider there in his area that hides the same kind of cache in the same way everywhere. And that is a problem with a lot of the prolific hiders. They find something that works and they tend to stick with it. But that doesn't mean they can't do something interesting on like the cache page. And one of ours does series of caches where it will be like one time it's the dogs of the presidential families, another time it's Indian information, another time it will be chemistry. So he takes the same boring type of hide, but through the information on the cache page turns it into something different.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah. So you've got these nice, easy caches, easily maintained, easily placed, readily available containers, but you're making them different through the information on the cache page. But that gets into another question of how many people are actually even going to the cache pages and reading that information anymore. I think it's actually probably better now than it was in the like I'll say early GSAC days, when you didn't have all of the information available on the GPS, a lot of people would just load 100, 200 caches in the GPS and go, and they didn't have anything more than the size, difficulty, and terrain. That's it. So they never read anything unless they couldn't find it based on that little bit of information. So they just didn't see those pages at all. Now that we have it on the phone and in the paperless caching info on the GPSRs, I think we are getting a lot more people looking at it. That said, a lot of people just don't look at it, period.
Exactly. Yeah, you should just put a spoiler hint right in the text, because nobody's going to read it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I used to try to do that in the titles, so that at least people would get some clue out of the title.
Right.
But that even seems to have kind of disappeared now. And I try to read too much into some of the titles. Susan says that she has a hider in that area who has over 100 hides and doesn't maintain them. Bad hider. Bad hider.
Start posting needs archived.
Yeah, lots of needs maintenance. Now, if they're really bad, though, seriously, do the needs maintenance logs. And if they are not maintaining them and it's bad quality caches, it probably is time for a needs archive log. Well, gentlemen, we're at almost an hour already. That didn't take very long.
How did that happen?
And we have so much more to talk about. So, of course, we're going to have a patron edition of the show, and Rock Chalk's going to hang out with us for that one. But before we let you go from this one, Rock Chalk, let's get some official news from your day job.
Am I supposed to be reading something?
Well, this is
No,
the
you don't have to.
about the Get Outdoors month.
Sometimes I know I'm supposed to be keeping an eye, and I'm supposed to read something, and I'm like, God, did I forget I was supposed to read something? So I was like, is that a cue?
Yes, it was.
No, so we announced within the last several days that there will be a souvenir next month for Get Outdoors Day. It's actually part of Get Outdoors month. Originally, the souvenir was going to be U.S. only, and the reason for that was that Get Outdoors month is a U.S. initiative, and it's something where we're actually working with an organization that is putting on Get Outdoors month. And so we thought, well, we'll do this, and then it lets us see how this sort of more localized souvenir works, and maybe we can do it in other places eventually. But then the folks at Get Outdoors month were like, yeah, we don't care if you do it everywhere. so we thought, well, that's a win for everybody. We'll just expand the souvenir to where anybody can get it if they find a cache on that day. And you guys probably have the day in front of you, and I don't. It's June 11th. Is it June 11th?
I actually don't have it up, but give me a second because I have the link.
Oh, I was thinking it was.
I think it is June 11th. It's a
June
Saturday.
11th.
It is June 11th.
Yeah,
yes.
Saturday, June 11th. That was right. That's cool. So yeah, you just have to find a cache on or attend an event on June 11th, and you'll get your souvenir for Get Outdoors.
And I'm waiting for Wet Coaster to post something in the live Q&A about how it would only have been available to the U.S. since he's Canadian.
I was thinking there was a certain Canadian that probably flooded your emails with.
Well, and we did get a lot of feedback, because when we sent that out, we asked people, hey, is there something going on in your area that would make for and we got a lot of feedback from Canada, and so yeah, they've actually had some great ideas that we're going to look into. But like I said, once we talked to the folks at Get Outdoors month, they were just like, yeah, that's awesome if you make it for everybody, and so that's what we did. So everybody wins.
And everybody can get outdoors. It doesn't matter what country you're in.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Nice.
even if you're in Antarctica and it's 40 degrees below zero,
Get outdoors.
you can still get
Not for
outdoors.
long, but you can get outdoors.
You can still get outdoors.
Oh, can you imagine finding a geocache in that weather conditions and snow and the... Anyway, you know what it is? this is your last chance. This is your last chance for the WWFM13 GeoCoin from coinsandpins.com through this very show. We want your geocaching tips for episode 231. So send an email to GeoGearHeads@cachemaniacs.com with the title, Question 231, along with your geocaching.com screen name and your tip for fellow geocachers. If you share your entry in your own voice, you'll get not one, but two entries into the drawing. So record that audio file and email it to GeoGearHeads@cachemaniacs.com. Your deadline to have those tips in is May 30th, 2016 at 6 p.m. Pacific.
And that's just one of the many great shows we've got coming up. Next week, we're talking about trip planning, and we should have both Shermanator 18 and, schedule permitting, we'll still have Shorty Knits on to talk about that. Then on the second, for that tips and tricks show, we're excited to have Doc Firewoman joining us. Then what I know so many cachers are looking forward to is on June 9th, we're going to have episode 232. That's our GPS versus smartphone show. And that's going to be Land Monkey and Scott Burks arguing for the two sides. Now, June 16th, this is a new one that we just added to the schedule, is going to be the Geocaching International Film Festival 2016. So we're excited to have hopefully a couple of the women behind the festival on the show to talk about the past festivals, this festival, and how to get your entry in.
Nice. Until that time, check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2016 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.